Should there be national proficiency standards in academic institutions? And if so, what should they look like? Well, here's the crux of the issue. We know that all academic institutions are not created equally. That is, the quality of education that individuals receive and the level of proficiency and understanding that individuals possess after completing these academic programs varies greatly from one program to another. And the reason for this scenario is complex. That is, individuals who go to highly ranked, for example, academic institutions oftentimes come from a strong academic background. The average student that you have sitting in seats are going to be more engaged and more driven to take part and excel in the program. That allows professors to dig deeper into topics. It allows students to learn more readily from the group work or the individual sitting beside them in the classroom. And overall, the academic experience is simply enriched by this fact. Now, at lower tier academic institutions, the individuals going there oftentimes do not have as much preparation to excel in those programs. That is, they don't have strong academic backgrounds, and at these schools, they are part of a classroom, right? They don't learn individually. There is collective learning that goes on, and professors have to deliver the content and information to the best of their ability, but they also can't flunk an entire class if they don't meet the academic standards that may be held at another institution. What ultimately happens is that the academic standards are lowered. There's a normalization there, where there may be some students who don't pass the greater class, but the majority of students are going to pass, even if they learn the material at a lower level or they invest less time and effort into the class or do less work than students would do at a more demanding or rigorous academic program. This reality is almost certain. You may have some academic institutions and professors argue that they maintain the academic standards at a higher level, even if the students can't meet those standards, and the professors just work hard or do a better job to get their students up to a level of proficiency and understanding. But in reality, this is not true. By and large, if these students are not as engaged, not as prepared, and ultimately don't invest as much time in the activity, they're not going to meet the knowledge and standards that you have at other academic institutions. And thus, you've created this class system among academic institutions. If you go to one institution versus another, you are naturally smarter than someone else in someone else's eyes, when that may not be true. I've heard it said that the best students anywhere are the best students everywhere. And I do tend to believe that. And I believe that the best students at a lower tier educational institution may perform at a higher level or have better understanding or knowledge or proficiency in a given area than the average student at a higher prestige academic institution. So the question really becomes, how do you address this perceived bias or class system that is formed among academic institutions? Well, one way to do that could be through national proficiency standards. So let's assume these proficiency assessments would try to identify skill sets and would also try to assess the knowledge, understanding, and proficiency level in using or employing the academic information or knowledge or theories, etc., that have been learned in the educational institution. If you could come up with a way of assessing this, that is, actually giving someone a score and doing it in a fair way, that is, remove the subjectivity from it, but also remove many of the biases that are inherent in our testing methods that we use today. Many people do not test well based on a time frame or sequence. And many people would say, well, an individual who can answer a question in a shorter amount of time more thoroughly is smarter or has more knowledge or something of that nature. But oftentimes we know that's not true. The most knowledgeable or best reasoning individuals oftentimes take longer and spend more time on a problem because they're examining more aspects of the potential avenues of which way you should go with the problem, how you should deal with it, things of that nature. But on the other side, if you do, say, in-person interviews to assess proficiency, knowledge, etc., then you have the subjective element there of whoever's grading the assessment. That is, how well was the question or information communicated to the person? How inviting are they to allow the individual to request more information or to clarify things? There are numerous reasons that the subjective nature of this type of assessment could be difficult if you didn't have the same individual assessor, and that's obviously not possible with so many students and replicating one individual or one group of individuals who are trained to the same standard is quite difficult. Now, some might say that if you do the assessment by committee, that is, you have the assessment done by multiple people and you take the average, that ultimately the law of averages would say that you come up with a normalized assessment level or proficiency assessment level. So you could come up with a way of assessing knowledge that is more equitable or fair to everyone, that allows for the application of thought and doesn't succumb to many of the biases of our current assessment methods. So that's my question for you today. Should we have national proficiency assessment standards? If we do, what should they assess? How should they assess? What should be some of the objectives? That is, are we assessing skill set? Are we assessing the acquisition and ability to recall knowledge? Are we giving them a certain amount of knowledge and assessing their ability to apply it logically? So there are many different ways you could assess an individual and many different ways you could structure it. So if you have an opinion on this, please jump down in the comments below. Go over to the Business Professor, jump in one of the discussion forums and start a discussion. But regardless, as always, I hope to see you around the platform soon. Until then, take care.